So, if you're not in the know, then essentially you probably haven't heard anything about the Dragon Age Veilguard game. And that's crazy. But I just wanted to talk about essentially my viewpoints on the game because it's clearly something I'm definitely not going to play. And it has all of the rhetoric behind it that essentially is a typical hot button topic for most gamers and the gaming journalism and journalism in general, as well as a lot of essentially disingenuous concepts being thrown around here and there and whatever. Now, for the most part, this game essentially has been in development for years, probably 8 to 10, if I'm not mistaken, done by BioWare, and it would be like the fourth installment of the game, not counting the DLCs. Awakening is a DLC. But yeah, it will be the fourth installment of the game, and essentially was a highly anticipated installment, as a lot of people really enjoy and love Dragon Age. Now, me personally, I got into Dragon Age from Dragon Age Inquisition. I got Inquisition on both the PlayStation 3 and the 4. I really enjoyed that game. I then went back and bought Origins and played that, and Origins was awesome. I really enjoyed that. I felt that the concept and the story and the stakes from Origins were greater than what happened in Inquisition, and the fact that even with Veilguard, these people have yet to try and do the systematic different origins that you get from that you basically can choose from when you play Dragon Age Origins. To me, I feel is disheartening, as it's like that was such a cool aspect that like I haven't seen in any other game. You can pick where you start from, but there's nothing that's like, okay, you give some grounded reasoning and logic as to why you do what you do. Even Cyberpunk 2077 barely does that, and it's like you kind of start off in a place and you do a couple of missions here or there, but it's not as intense as what Origin was. But that's just me gushing. But again, the game itself looks, I'm talking about Veilguard, the game itself looks terrible by comparison towards the other Dragon Age games. The characters are unappealing, the actual artwork and art design of it is very bubbly and cutesy from a dark tone fantasy story. There's a lot of things that just visually are unappealing, and then gameplay wise and mechanic wise, things that they have in there are not associated or in tune with a Dragon Age game. Now, this is essentially where I wanted to touch base with my viewpoint on how people are handling this, because essentially it's getting to the point where a lot of people are essentially excusing what Veilguard has done based off of some ridiculous notion that it's okay to excuse what they've done because they are no longer BioWare. And so this is where I wanted to step in. When you go to a restaurant and you've eaten there for years, and essentially that restaurant decides to change up the chef, the menu, to change up the chef, but the menu is still the same, and it still calls itself the same restaurant. But when you eat the food tastes drastically different. So much so that essentially you would then call it worse than what you originally had. Would you still eat at that restaurant? No. And so that is the logic behind how ridiculous this game truly is. You see, BioWare still calls itself BioWare. Yes, the actual developers, the writers, and all of the people who essentially made all those great games that people enjoyed from BioWare, they're gone. Like, damn near all of them are gone. They have not been there for almost over a decade now. So they're gone. But the company still calls itself BioWare. The game that they released was a Dragon Age game. It was not a brand new fantasy game under the umbrella of BioWare, which would have been an excusable feat. No, it was not a Dragon Age side story that dealt with characters that essentially didn't deal with anything from the main story, which also would have been an okay thing for them to do. That's not what they did. They made a sequel towards the Dragon Age saga that BioWare has created, and in their attempt to essentially throw in identity politics, common phrase wording within an epic fantasy setting that actually has its own terminology and meanings and different archetypes within speech and whatnot, They threw in all of the stuff that you could possibly imagine that would be things that would turn away a common fan or people who actually do not like the game based off of those merits, and added in everything and anything that they wanted based off of how they felt, so much so that the characters themselves, you don't even choose your own adventure in a game that's based upon choice, nor do you get the actual fulfillment or enjoyment of playing the dark, gritty fantasy that Dragon Age is built and based on. It is a disservice towards what it actually is, for absolutely no reason other than the fact that the people who are handling said project aren't talented enough to handle said project. And if that is the case, they should not have handled the project. That's it. That's all that needed to be said. That's all that should have been said. But this shit went out of hand. And I say that from essentially both, not both. This is from the issue of the gaming industry in general and the actual spearhead that they have towards just ruining gaming, the gaming culture, the gaming aspect of just being a fan of basic shit. They're ruining it for nothing. They're ruining for nothing because it doesn't make any sense. And it's like the idea behind a lot of the stuff that they say and a lot of things that they do just shows you exactly how little they care about the actual fandom and people paying money to buy the shit in the first place, which also explains why their sales are terrible. And then essentially they wonder, why isn't it no one wants to buy our game? This is the same rhetoric that popped up from what's her name? Elizabeth Banks, when she made that god-awful Charlie's Angels movie. And she went out of her way to tell people this movie isn't for men. And then when no one saw the movie, then her ideal was men are afraid to watch my movie. and it was something where it's like so many people who essentially were moviegoers were hit with that giant contradiction that she was walking around saying these stupid things. And it's like, wait a minute, you said it wasn't for us, so we didn't go see it. But now you're saying we should have seen it. What do you want? And it's like, well, that's just it. She doesn't want anything. They just want to instill their own crazy ideologies inside of things that are already popular and established because they lack the creativity to make something on their own. And then they force and insert themselves and all of their crazy and stupid rhetorics into those things just so they can essentially hammer home whatever it is that they want their talking points to be, regardless of how you feel about the subject matter. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work within the confines of the game. They want to introduce a character being non-binary because they feel that that's an important thing for people to know about. So there you go. Could they handle that well within a video game? Sure. Did they do that? No. Is that something that people are asking for in a video game? No. Could you still have that in a video game and it be okay? Sure. Do they have the talent to convey that in a video game? No. Which is why you got what you got. A fucking Quinari, Quinari, who essentially tells people about the Qun teaching, yet at the same time goes and tells people that they don't have to follow the Qun, but they still adhere to the rules of the Qun, and they just desperately want to let their mother know that they're non-binary and that the mother should accept them for whatever they are. Yet whenever other people talk to them about things, if she does not like it, then she gets upset and tells them that they should just not do what it is that she doesn't like. It's stupid. Like what I just said was stupid. I hate the fact that I had to say that, but I just said it because that's something that's inside of this game. But as someone who's a fan of Dragon Age, you can't help but look at something like that and go, you can't turn a blind eye to this and expect me to just enjoy your game, because you've made the game terrible based off of this. But it's not just this one act alone. There's multiple elements that make the game bad, and that essentially is the issue within the gaming media and the gaming industry, where it's like they're not listening to everyone give a fair criticism about the game, because a lot of the criticism is coming from the gameplay being repetitive and ridiculous, the enemies being spongy, battle sponges, and essentially just ridiculous puzzles, and not really enthusiastic storytelling, very bad and poorly written characters, ugly designs, ugly character customizations, terrible lack of customization within a character customizations, to the point where it's like you can do less. The max amount of things that you could do within this Dragon Age game is nothing compared to all that you could do in Inquisition. Inquisition had a better character creation than this game, and yet they looked at what they were making and it was like, oh, this is all inclusive, this is so everyone can feel included and whatnot. Yet a lot of female players of the game were upset because they actually couldn't make their characters look like themselves, which is something that a lot of people do when they play video games. They make their character look as close to them as possible. And for something to want to be so inclusive, they excluded so many things that would make a female character look like an attractive female character. Weird, right? But that goes to show you exactly how disingenuous these people are, and how excuse me, and how terrible the rhetoric is from their side, because these are people who are yelling at you to accept everything that they shit. Choking on sentiment. Woo. These are people who want you to accept everything that they give you without adhering to what it is that you want. So even in the sense of like, for example, the Spider-Man 2 game, where you had the actual director come out and talk on that terrible shill show, wasn't it Kind of Funny? Something like that, something stupid, where he essentially said, laid out the law of why that game was shitty, which was that you find out things that you want to put into your game that your audience might not want, and then you put it in there anyway, so that way they're forced to deal with the thing that you want them to deal with. That's a terrible way to make a video game. And it's like, you find out what your audience wants, and then you just make it. If you have something that you want to talk about or you want to convey, you find a clever way of putting that in the game to where you're not beating your audience over the head with it, but you add it into a way to where it's something that's accessible, like they accept it and it's understandable and it fits within the confines of the media that you have presented with, which in this case is video games. So again, it's not as if we haven't had gay video game characters before. It's not as if we had, weird, non-binary, awkward, socially awkward characters, or character customizations where people can have massive amounts of like big tits or small butts and things like that. We've had that before. So the idea behind creating this stuff in the game and not understanding that essentially this doesn't affect gamers the way that you think it'll affect them is just, again, a showcasing of how bad the industry has become, despite all that has happened within people constantly pointing the finger at the industry and the gaming media and the game developers and whatnot, letting these people know what you want to do is not going to make money. Regardless of what you feel about what it is that you want to do, what you're trying to do is not going to make you any money. It's not, because people are not going to buy games based off of your understanding or your politics. They're going to buy games if they want, because they want to play the game. You can make a game about gender politics if you want. Hell, they made a game about gender politics. No one fucking played it. Why? Because everything that they tried to shoehorn into something like Dragon Age Veilguard was basically laid out bare in that Dustborn game. No one wanted to fucking play it. It had ugly characters, had a stupid story, had a ridiculous concept, and was just unbelievably unfucking playable. So people didn't play it. But that was the perfect example to show you. And it was like, hey, if you guys had a chance to make your own game based off of your ridiculous politics, this is what it would look like. This is not a good idea. This is not going to make any money. So now, since you've seen the fallout behind it, will you stop doing that so you can make some money? So you can have a non-binary character in a game and people will be okay with it because your storytelling is able to make that character an amazing character, like they do in so many other TV shows and movies like that already exist. It's not as if you don't have the resources or the inspiration to give you that boost to let you know, like, oh, this can be handled well and it will be fine. But for some reason, we're dealing with people who are systematically stupid, and they have done everything that they can to remain stupid. And I use the harsh term stupid because of the fact that it's like, think of not essentially, the media, the gaming media, and all the directors and developers and shit like that, but think of essentially the people who are gamers that are essentially on the side of those people going, hey, just give the game a chance. I refer you back to my example about going to a restaurant. If you saw a child cooking a steak at a restaurant and the kid was fumbling around, he dropped the steak on the floor, and you could see what's happening inside of the kitchen, but the person sitting next to you at the table is telling you, just try it. Just try it. You didn't even try it yet. Why are you making judgments and assumptions based off of what's gonna happen? You ain't even tried yet. You see how they sound fucking stupid? and then that same person would say something ridiculous like, hey, it's not the same chef. Obviously that chef left years ago, so we're dealing with a brand new team and whatnot. So cut them some slack. You shouldn't hold them to the same standards as the old chef or the old team. They're gone now. And again, they still call themselves BioWare, right? This game is still Dragon Age, right? They're not associating themselves with the standards of the old team. They didn't come out the gate saying, hey, our game might not be as good as the old BioWare because we're new. They didn't say that. They just said BioWare made a new game. So to not hold them to the same standards is disingenuous and fucking stupid, because they themselves are using the legacy of those old standards in order to promote themselves. Do you not see how disingenuous and fucked up that is? These people will do anything and everything that they can to get what they want, regardless of what you feel or what you care about. There's like what you feel like or what you care about. They will destroy it and dismantle it just so they can get some type of stupid message across, because that's all they want to do. And that's what they've shown you inside of this game. It has contradictory writing. It has terrible choice elements. It has the most ridiculous concepts within essentially continuing the story from the original storyline of Dragon Age. Hell, it made it to where all of your previous situations or choices that were made from all the other previous games, which essentially were leading you up and building up this fantastic exposition of storytelling that would be wonderfully constructed in a brand new game, just fucking useless. None of it mattered. Everything you did in Orlais doesn't matter. Everything you did as the hero for Elden doesn't fucking matter. Your conquest as the Inquisitor and what exactly that means for the world in itself by either getting rid of the circle or choosing who would be the head of the Chantry doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't fucking matter. Like I said, I'm a fan. None of that matters in a game where your choices are supposed to matter. Do you not see how, at the very core of just the basic understanding of what this game is, the people behind it didn't fucking get it? They don't get it, and they don't care to get it, because that's not what they wanted to do. What they wanted to do was have an ugly Quinari talk about how they're non-binary, a concept that should not exist within this world. What they wanted to have was to have the slider that showed you whether or not you had trans scars on your character, which again, a concept that shouldn't matter in this world because magic exists. So it's like, if you want to be a man or a woman, you can be a man or a woman. You're literally creating your own character. You can create that character to be a man or a woman. What the fuck? How do you not understand that the politics cannot matter here. They should not matter here. Because that's not what this is about. That's not what this is based off of. Dragon Age has its own lore, its own characters, its own backstory. It has everything going for it for you to essentially had a layup of a game that would have allowed you to make some quick, easy bucks and then going into another Mass Effect, which again, obviously you're going to fuck up because you didn't learn any damn thing and you didn't show anyone after doing Dragon Age Veilguard that you're capable of creating anything worthy of the name BioWare anymore. And it's obvious, like, even if somehow you manage to stay alive, EA doesn't kill you so you can stay alive and do another Mass Effect, when that game bombs, because again, it's the same people working on Veilguard working on this, when that game bombs, that'll be it for BioWare. Why the fuck would they be, who would need them to stay around? And if anything, it's like the only thing you can hope for is that someone somewhere will be smart enough to actually buy up the license from EA so they can actually make another Mass Effect or a Dragon Age game later on. And that's the best you can hope for. That's the absolute best you can hope for. You see, it's sad because essentially this is a game that was ruined based off of politics. Rather than, let's say like Starfield, for example, which is a game ruined based off of scope and idea, or scope and like imagination, because Bethesda is just stagnant as fuck. Bethesda is shown in anime, really. It's just stagnant as fuck. It might throw on a fresh coat of paint, but it's the same fucking thing over and over and over again. So to anyone who jumps in thinking like, ooh, this is going to be new and different, you're stupid because they don't have any innovation in Bethesda. So it's the same thing. But what made that game bad and what made Dragon Age Veilguard bad? Two different concepts, two different things. But you're seeing it within the community and people who play video games, breaking it down and letting people know, this is what's wrong with this game. This is why people don't like these games. This is what people would want changed, and this is what people actually expected. This is what I wanted. This is what it should have been if you wanted to make money. And you have these developers, the gaming media outlets, and all these other factors hearing these retorts towards the game and ignoring the fuck out of them. But there is some, well, I would say there's some light at the end of the tunnel, but realistically, you just take a nugget of positivity from this. The fact that multiple gaming outlets have reneged on their original overall review and ranking of Dragon Age Veilguard is a step in the right direction. They should have never gave their little stupid ass positive review in the first place, which again, a lot of those reviews were based off of gender politics, similar to how the Black Myth Wukong game had negative reviews based off of essentially what, like, lack of diversity. That just made my head hurt. But there are things that have absolutely no reason, that they have no bearing on the game whatsoever, yet for some reason those things are given as marks towards whether or not the game is like a good game. Terrible people, but these are the people who run the gaming media, so whatever. But we've known that for years. Terrible people. But the fact that they've seen the backlash and exactly how terrible, how bad it is now getting within the world of video games. Again, it's a step in the right direction. Not that gaming media is going to change for the better anytime soon, or that you should care for it to change better, or anything like that. But just for the fact that it's like, they need to start getting along with the program because of the fact that it's like their audience are us, gamers. People who want to play the game, people who expect them to hold some type of integrity. And the more they keep showing that they don't have any integrity, the more they keep losing money. Kotaku just fucking fired so many different people because they were upset about the fucking presidential election. And that ain't got shit to do with their job being to talk about video games. But to them, it did, because everything with them runs on politics. So they could drop this, they could drop their job quick, fast, and hurry, because what the fuck do they care? They want to talk about their politics, their issues. I got things to discuss now. That's what they want to talk about. You have one of the easiest jobs in the world. You play video games and all you gotta do is just type up a little couple of paragraphs explaining what it is that you fucking played. God. I wish I could have that job. But it's like, you don't understand what you have, or or you're incapable of even doing the most simplistic of things with what you have. Because you're ridiculous. You're a moron. You're crazy. And it's like, I just want people to understand that essentially no one is in the right on this, for this game, in claiming or explaining that it's a good or a positive thing or it's something to be excused. None of those people are right. This is a bad game. Without a shadow of a doubt, this is a bad game. It is a game that should not be played if you happen to be a fan of the Dragon Age games, but it also systematically doesn't work as a video game because it's just poorly designed as a video game. So that is something that can easily be ascertained just by looking at gameplay rather than even actually engaging in the gameplay. And when you have a video game like that, that is something that is definitely not worth playing because what? It is a bad game. So I just wanted to convey that because I feel that there's way too many people out there who essentially are like, you know, they're hearing a lot of people trying to defend the stupidity that came out of Dragon Age Veilguard, and it's like, that's really what peeved me off. And it's like, why are you defending what happened? Well, it can't all be that bad. And it's like, no, it is all that bad. What they're trying to tell you is that it can't be all that bad, but it is. And that's the problem, is that they had years to not fuck up, and that's exactly what they did. They fucked up, and they should be called out on it. They should be called out on it, and they should be held up to the same standards that you would for old BioWare. The same way everyone jumped down their throats to the end of Mass Effect 3 is the same way we should jump down their throats for Dragon Age Veilguard just being a terribly constructed video game. It doesn't matter about your feelings towards what's going on or how you think everything is being affected by this, that, or the third, or whatnot. These are video games. You judge them based off of the merit of them existing as video games. Not what they can do, not what they should do, not what they're talking about, not what they might go over, just the fact that you played this game. Is it a yay or a nay? And this is something just by looking at it as a video game, it is a resounding nay. And it should be definitely called out on it. Held up high so people can see this is how you make a bad game, and then the punishment should serve the crime. Nobody buys the game. They move like nobody buys the game. People hate the game. People talk about how bad the game is. It lets other people know how bad the game is. You do not get to give them excuses because that is not fair. It's not fair because it's not right. Am I making sense now? I don't know. I'm kind of rambling right now. So I'm going to end it here. But yeah, I just really feel that essentially with it being so bad, and again, it's like it special place in my heart for Dragon Age because they're really good games. And to have essentially like, was it one of the developers to come out and say, we're not taking away your playthroughs from the other games, it's just that none of those things matter when you play this game. Then why the fuck even make it? What is wrong with you? What exactly is wrong with you? So you're saying none of that stuff is important because you want to tell your story your way, which is exactly what they did. And for a game that is built around choices, that's a problem. That is a huge that's a wrong thing to do. But again, that just goes to show you exactly who you're dealing with. These people want to tell their story their way. They don't give a damn what you want. And that's the worst mindset you could have when your job is to make video games. And so I'll leave it on that. This has been another episode of Fun with Flame. I've been your host, Daniel the Flame. There's always good people. Hope you had fun.